All right, welcome back. This is Kevin McCain with Idaho Art Classes and Kevin McCain Studios. So today we're going to be looking at and drawing some feet. All right, so we're going to go ahead and deal with the drawing of the human foot. And so we're going to go ahead and we've got 6 little bits here for those of you in the class. You're gonna get this. You're going to get these little feet, and your assignment will be to try to draw these feet up for us, 6 little different views of the foot. And we're going to use construction for this instead of a whole lot of measuring. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would approach a couple of these, and we'll go from there. All right, so in terms of, let's probably start with this foot right here, the one in perspective, which I think will be the funnest. If we go ahead and start with this foot, and we're going to start with construction, we're going to try to figure out the kind of, if you want to, you can go ahead and take a quick measurement if you're trying to, do it that way. But we could say, all right, well, this is about, a 1 to 2 sort of, rectangle, what have you. And so we'd say, all right, but not, and so we said, all right, well, it's a 1 to 2, well, then that means, whatever. But it's also set, if we look at this and put a line right down the middle of that foot, this foot is set at a slight angle. Okay. So, and again, we can take the width and we can say, well, I think it felt like it was like a 1 by 2, or, twice as tall as it is wide, which is close, it's fine. And then we say, all right, and then this is the foot coming back. All right. Now, if we look at this foot, of course, we got the cute little toes out here. But let's see. We're going to go ahead and break this down, and we basically have sort of a rounded triangle over here. So we just could round this off a little bit. For the construction, again, we've got sort of a rounded part here. And then it touches. Now, it touches at 2 slightly different places. I could go ahead and put another triangle here if I wanted to continue the construction. But there's a point at which, this is coming up. In fact, this has an angle about like so. And then this comes in. Now, I need to have my angle here because this is how the middle of the heel and the middle of the upper foot align. So that's going to be really important that I have, again, that lean. What's the angle of that foot? And then we have that this right here is coming up, a very general sort of angle like that coming up through this foot. And then we have, of course, this is is rounding over here. And then we have this. Now this is interesting because you have this is kind of comes like this, and then you have the part where it really begins to come out for the outside. You can see the footprint. And for those that have, when we drew shoes, that's again what is so difficult about drawing shoes is that we're dealing with something that actually fits on this foot. And the foot is very different right to left. That's what we're trying to get, that we have this, again, this rounded triangle here. If we wanted to, you could say, all right, well, there's a triangle here. There's another, then there's a little bit of a rectangle like so. On the end of that rectangle, there is, again, 2 triangles there. You can really start to break this up for those that are really into, as we use this construction technique. Again, it can be very, very, very powerful for our drawings. I think we're going to break outside this. Again, we didn't do severe measuring, but it seems like to me like this should break outside just a little bit for that foot. Okay, this is just the basic overall general, maybe this will break out here a little bit, general shape of the foot. We then are going to have the toes. Now, the toes, again, through here, this right here is basically the probably the metatarsal, but it's a turning of the bone right through here, and it goes into the big toe. And so what we can do is just below this joint is that little bit of the toe, and if we look at the toe, there is an arc to this toe. The toes are set out again in an arc. In fact, this pattern of this foot pad comes through, and then there's, it comes around the toes, and then there's the arc through the toes. There's a definite arch we talked about, and we can see it here. The feet fan out. There is an arc here. There's an arc through the top of the phalanges, where the metatarsals, where those bones, the little knuckle, if you will. That's in an arc. This is in an arc. We also talked about that feet are arced this way. Feet are also arced this way. In fact, if you look at the skeleton, it arcs through the heel bone, and it arcs down through here, and then it's also arced coming back this way. It's a double arch, and that is one of the strongest architectural elements that there are, is a double arch. And it's used in the human body and it shouldn't surprise us, because this is where all the weight of the body is on this foot. It has to be designed to carry the weight of the entire body on the foot. Okay, so we're going to start to deal with some of the extra, some of the other stuff going on in this foot. So if we look at this foot, there's again, now we could either do an arc, or we could break this up into sort of a, if you want to, you can actually make this two little triangles, which is fine for right now. And then off that, now part of this is because of the fact that this person has, it has hair on their legs. And so this starts to look like a pant leg up here. Don't be distracted by that. It's just because of the fact that this person has hair on their legs. It's a gentleman's foot. So we're gonna again, there's this double, and it's basically coming up here, and then right above that there is the bone of this leg. And that should be the inside, so that should be, again, so this is, there's like a little wrench shape where the two bones on either side, fibula and the tibia is the lower one on the outside. This would be the fibula. And so we're going to go ahead, and that just means there's a wrench shape. It makes a little shape that locks into these bones. But this one over here is higher, and this one over here is lower. Now, this is the opposite side. So this is the inside right here. This is, do we have one? Nope. No, this is the outside. That's the outside. So this is the inside. So that'd be the fibula bone. But we're going to look for that, because then again, that's going to be another sort of trapezoidal sort of shape right through there. Okay. We have a little bit of the Achilles tendon coming down here. That Achilles tendon is, again, we're going to start to get a little bit, usually there'll be a little bit of a triangular motion going through there. Now this is a foreshortened leg. So this is actually, this bump back here, in case wondering what that is, that's the actual muscle. That's the muscle of the back of the lower leg, that's coming up there. And again, this is like, this comes into here, and it's foreshortening as this is coming up, and then this is again the muscle right through there. This again is about the halfway point where this foot, where again we have this leg foreshortened, and we start to see, now I can see just a little bit of it, but there's actually, again, this leg is actually sitting on a couch or something. So this is actually the leg coming around which happens when you get extreme foreshortening. We're not going to worry quite so much about that leg, but I want you to understand that we know it's there. We're going to give it a nod. We're not going to go nuts over it, but we are going to give it a nod to the fact that we know what's happening there. This through here is going to be the instep, okay? And so we can see this instep coming through there. And then, you know, you have the pad of the foot right there. So again, this would be sort of the instep of that person's foot, right? And his is a little softer, but again, I'm going to hit it a little bit harder because usually instep, that's the pad, so it's going to usually come in through here. There's some strange coloration on this. I don't know why, but anyways, so we got the instep coming in through here on this foot. And we just want to make sure we have, you know, the different, you know, we have the pad of the heel right through here. Now there is a tendon that's causing this little V curve. Again, we can, you know, again, the V curve, this is where the foot can actually be, you know, if you ever squeeze somebody's foot, you can feel the bones sort of come in a little bit because it's arced. So there's a little bit of give as you push that foot down. If you take the foot off, the foot has a little bit more arch to it. And then when you place the foot down, it flattens out a little bit. It has a little give through there. And that's great for weight distribution and for keeping us being able to deal with our balance and stuff like that is what that helps to do for the foot. So again, we've got sort of like this little, again, if we look around here, there's this little thing that comes over here. And again, then we've got this fat pad. I don't know if you realize it, but most of our weight is distributed along this pad through here. This pad is very, very important. This is where most of the weight is distributed along this pad and then into the heel. Whereas this, you know, through here isn't touching. This is more the arch, okay? So unless you have fallen arches or something like that. We want a nod to some of that's happening, some of this architecture on the foot as we're drawing this. I'm just barely sketching this, but there's going to be a point at which we're going to start to lock in some of this stuff. Now, again, this comes over here, and we have the lowest part of the foot it's the first toe that's actually a little longer. So we want to be careful with, as we're putting in Mr. Big Toe or what have you here, that we've got enough room for Mr. Big Toe. Right. Since it's curling back, there's a little bit of that pucker through there. There's then this toe through here. Toe comes over. Toe comes out. And again, we're just going to roughen the basic shape of this big toe. For right now, we're just trying to get it to position it so we can then get everything else positioned. So, we then got the first toe that's down through here. And this big toe, again, it really helps for us to be able to, we use that big toe, the pad of that toe, to help us, again, keep our balance. So this is the big toe up here. This is then, we have some serious foreshortening through these little toes, which is important for us to be able to deal with, again, the foreshortened feet. And you see how round these toes are from the bottom, how, again, it's the toes that are touching, and then these are, the little knuckles of the toes and things. These are going back. They're not even making contact with the ground. So, again, we've got this little foot coming in here. And this is probably pretty light, but maybe I'll use an HB. Maybe some a little darker if I've got one. Make this, okay. So let's see. We've got that one. Also got this. There's this little one right here. He's he's a slight angle to the big toe. Is well, that's too big. Obviously, is the little toe. Okay, and there's got to be enough room for the little toe to put of course the fourth toe in here. All right. Like so. All right, so we got yawn foot happening. And that's a good thing. Got a little bit of this guy coming through here. Now there's quite quite a light source on here, so we can see a sort of a cast shadow going around there. But that's, again, this is helping describe this foot. Like so. And then this is going to come into here, and again we see just this little toe. Again, foreshortened a bit as far as that goes. And toe a little bit through there. This is and we've got this fold here. All right. So again, we got this little guy here. We got this guy here, and again we see just a little bit of, now it's in slight shadow, but it's there, this little bit of this little toe coming around here and going into the foot. All right. So we got, again, now we have this foot that's in some severe, well, not severe, but we definitely some foreshortening happening, because we do have foreshortening on this foot. Right. And so we have this, again, we're starting to get some of these different folds that are happening because of the way the foot is sitting. And this is usually used to being stretched out a little bit more, so that's again where we're going to be getting some of these folds through the skin. Now these folds through the skin, there's certain parts that we're going to emphasize, there are other parts of these folds that are going to be less important. So when we're doing things like, if you put the folds everywhere the same amount, they have the same importance, but they don't have the same importance. There's some that are more important to the structure. There's others that are so light we can hardly even see them. And so we want to make sure that we don't have, things that are not as important emphasized too much. Like we have some, folds through here that again are going to be very light as they come up and over the foot. There's because of the way this, he's even got his foot kind of curled a little bit, so that's going to bring some more of these folds in. And we just have to be careful that we don't start going nuts with the folds and start to make it look like, this guy has the skin of an elephant or something like that. And sometimes it can get away from us and not make really much sense why this person's got what looks to be like stripes on his feet. Which, if we're not careful, that's what this will start to look like. We don't want that. So again, I'm going to go ahead and We're gonna go ahead and start to draw some of the more important features of this foot. And again, I'm trying to get, so there's some major folds through here that really have to do with the way the foot works. And we don't want to ignore it. We don't want to overemphasize it. We don't want to ignore it. We're trying to give it just enough of a hint, so we go, okay, yeah, because we're not going to shade this one necessarily. We're really trying to do more of a contour. So this is where we're going to go ahead and start to get in here and start to try to deal with some of the contours of this foot. This would probably be a little bit more rounded through here. All right. We got some of these little ripples that are happening, so we're trying to give a nod to some of those guys that are coming through here. Gotta be careful that if we do too many of them, it will start to affect the look of this thing. It'll start to look like this guy is made out of like a little sandbag or something if we're not careful. So gotta make sure that we don't go too nuts on some of that. And we can, again, we're going to go ahead and we can use this to just barely gently suggest some little things going on here. But again, I don't want to cloud over the major things. So all right, so we've got this bit of foot in there. Boy, I don't know what's going on back here. Let's go ahead and take that down. All right. So, all right. So if something is not as important, we're going to soften it. In other words, making a lighter line. Okay. we want to, we could even, try to bring in a little bit of there's a lighter part through here of this heel. Again, we got a little bit more. This is the lighter part, this would be the darker part. If I wanted to, for notation purposes, I could put a light little again, we're not doing a value drawing, but we can say, hey, we could go ahead and try to put a little more information on here where we're not necessarily going full on, sketching everything out, but we're not ignoring stuff either, or we could just go ahead and start to put a little bit of this information in if we wanted to do that, so forth and so on. This part of the foot has a little bit more pigmentation than the other part of the foot. Again, we could start to put in a little more information about this particular person's foot, without having to go in there and because there's a little bit it's darker pigment through here on the foot, and we can go ahead and start to deal with that. Right. We could put, it's kind of strange if we don't have the a little bit of the leg indicated, so we're going to go ahead and at least indicate a little bit of the foot that's happening here. This bit of the leg's going to be coming down off of there, and it comes here, and then it disappears as it starts to transition up onto that. And then we've got, again, the back of the calf muscle over there. Maybe we can lighten this a little bit more so it transitions a little bit more. Okay. We're going to put a little bit of the this division where we've got the bone coming up and around. And it also helps define a little bit of that. That's a little bit too much. It also helps to define a little bit of what's happening on with the Achilles tendon back there. Like so. And then again, we've got a bit of this leg coming out like so. And then, like I said, behind here, part of the, because it's foreshortening, this is actually part of the leg, and the distant part of the thickening of the leg as it's going, again, and it's in foreshortened, so it gets very short and bigger and a little thicker because of, again, the way things foreshorten. And so we've got a little bit of this now. Some of this think my heel got a little bit small over here. Now we can use thickness of line to indicate something is in shadow. Though I think this might be a little bit much to, it starts to get a little bit too thick, I think, for my taste anyways. That's just my own aesthetic choice. Now if I was doing this in ink or something, maybe I would leave it that thick. But so I think we've got some nice stuff going on here with this, with our foot here. Some of our foot over here. And now we're going to do a little bit more with the toes. Isn't that going to be fun? And again, there's the way the skin kind of pinches and gathers here. It's kind of wild as well. Now again, we're not going to deal with the shadows, but these would be coming into shadow as they come over here. You know, now we're just going to have some fun depicting the toe, you know, these toes a little bit. And we're not going to get into it too much. I think you guys understand kind of where we're going here. But sometimes it's fun to just indicate what's happening on some of these feet. And it's really wild how the feet will round and they change serious direction. I'll change direction again. They're not circles. And in fact, this might be a little too circular. I think this needs to be more of a little different shape. I think this one comes up a little bit more through here like this. But again, this then is going to start to hit this foot here that rests against it. And again, this is the fun stuff. I mean, the toes are really, you know, we're going to dress up the foot a little bit. I mean, otherwise the foot's going to be a little drab if it doesn't have some toes on here. Some toes just makes sense. You know, to have a foot with no toes just wouldn't make much sense. No matter the reason for no toes, it just wouldn't be a good idea. And again, this is all, you know, down here is all in shadow and such, but And again, I could put some notation in there if I wanted to, as far as that goes, but I'm not going to worry a ton about that. Some of the toes through there. That went perhaps just a little too dark. I mean, I don't want this to, again, seem like I'm inking this or something for a comic book, but not that I couldn't, but we don't. I don't know that that's the look I want right now. That's a good example. These feet are starting to feel pretty harsh because we got too much going on there. And we also have the fact that, of course, we've got these toes that have a front side and an underside and all this sort of stuff. But if we, get into this, we can go ahead and start to put again just a little bit of the information. Kind of helps us know which direction the toes are pointing, so to speak. All right. Come around here for our big toe. You've got the crease between the joint here. And part of the thing is this guy's didn't wash his feet before the photo shoot, it looks like. All right. Got to be careful with Mr. Big Toe here. I'll tell you what, feet are a lot of fun. They really are. They're like when we talked about noses in portraiture, they're sort of one of the most neglected, complex shapes. They may seem like just a bunch of bumps, but those bumps are sure important. Again, we've got, of course, this through here. Then we've got this, bit of this fat. There's the fat pad over here on this guy. Of course, got this fat pad through here. Bit of skin that comes out and around. As far as that goes. Then again, we've got lots of little information here. I'm going to try to see if we can go ahead and go on to the next one. I think I've spent way too much time on this guy, but the idea is that we've got, again, this foot. Twisting and turning in so many different ways. So, once again, we just barely got this thing going. We do have that this would change as a plane change. through here, through this part of the foot. That would give us its structure. It's also going back into space and foreshortening, which is making it a little bit darker. There's a little bit of this Achilles tendon through here that's getting a little darker as it's coming around. See, I haven't done a whole lot of hatching in class before. I'm doing a little bit of hatching now. That's just where we're using, well, actually this is actually cross contour, not just hatching, but can really help with something like this where we really want something to begin to feel the direction that this is turning. Now there's a little bit through here where this is actually coming down a little bit. So this comes down because this is coming up and then onto this raised fat pad for the heel. And there's this again is where the deep shadow starts, so maybe we'll just put a little bit, again, cross contour to show this is still round. But this is getting darker now. I'm getting probably way too much into this than we probably should have. As far as that goes. Anyways, gets a little darker through here. So forth and so on. But again, we're here for the foot. Foot's the star of the show. Now again, we've got this little bit, this going in a little bit, right, for this part of the foot. Right. As far as that goes. And then this raises up a little bit and gets a little bit lighter again. And then we've got this little fat pad coming back along here. And when we start to describe some of these pads, again, this is the basic idea of how the foot begins to work. But it can just really help to make sense of what can sometimes seem like just a bunch of chaos. Sometimes can seem like, just, again, random, and it's not random. It's just that it's got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that, is hard to, until we start to break it down, can again be a little hard to understand because there's just so much nuance. But the easiest way to deal with stuff that's hard to understand is to look at it and start to ask yourself what's happening, where is it changing, and smaller and smaller steps, baby steps, as you kind of ease your way into it. And then as that begins to happen, then it becomes much easier. It doesn't become so overwhelming. It doesn't become so strange. Looking a little bit for something that looks because this is round. If I'm hatching, I'm going to look for where the core shadow is a little bit, just to give a little bit more depth to the foot, to making it feel round again. With these little guys, same thing. I'd be looking for where can I start to put in the fact that this has, some roundness in there. Again, these should be contour drawings, but the other ones I'm not going to really do this sort of stuff on there. It just doesn't make sense. It's not, but I want you to kind of see, what my thinking is as I'm dealing again with this complex form. You got to be careful with these, again, with the folds. If you start going nuts on the folds, they start to lose their look of skin folding. It starts to just become this chaos. And remember, it's the form shadows, not the details. So the form shadows, these basic forms have to read first. Again, the foot pad, how is this bending? How is that bending? Whereas, like right through here, again, that's a little darker. That's a major thing. There's all kinds of little folds in there, but the folds aren't going to help if the major event isn't working. And so, again, that's what we're trying to deal with, is the fact that what's important is the basic structure of the end of this foot. And with this foot being in perspective, more than anything, we need something that's going to start to at least give a nod to the fact of what's happening on this foot, and with the value and all this sort of stuff. More than anything else, that's going to be, again, the important part of this guy. And so just by doing a little bit of this, we're starting to get a little bit of form happening through the foot and through the heel. Like so. And again, we're starting to get something that looks like a foot. Now again, if we were really into this, well, we'd have to start to darken this down here. We'd then have to go, all right, well, this is behind that, so this would have to start to darken a little bit as that foot went back, and so forth and so on. And that's how we get this that's how we get this thing to start to read right. As people would say, well, read, yeah, it's look right. Another way for saying it's going to look right. And so let's see, we've just, by doing that, I lost a little bit of this foot, or the heel, the pad of the heel. So now I'd have to come back in here and again try to get some of that heel pad to read again, because it's darker, and it's a pigmentation thing with this guy. And it's because that's where, again, where our foot is sitting, and so probably has something to do with the capillaries, or the way the blood pools, or whatever, or gravity or something. I don't know. I don't know enough about that minute subtleties of the body to answer that, to understand exactly what's happening. But again, we're going to try to bring into this thing what's some of the main main stuff happening on the foot. And the more we can answer that, the better the foot will look. All right, well, again, I wasn't supposed to put all this information on here, but I think you can see we're starting to have something that looks like a foot. All right, so we're going to come back here in a minute, and I'm going to draw another one of these feet. And again, we're going to try to keep these in contour. This just went a little nuts. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's do another one of these feet as far as that goes. And the real decision is, which one do we want to do? I think of these feet, let's do the one that actually shows the back portion of the foot. I think we'll do this one right here. But look at the angle. Look how the foot naturally rests into the leg. Now remember, this is the inside, this is the outside. So there's a lean of that leg to counterbalance. When you have counterbalancing angles all over throughout the human body. This is a good example of that. We said that this ankle bone is further down on this side, and see that angle? Maybe we'll go ahead and do this one instead. So again, of this particular one, we're going to go ahead and let's see if we can go ahead and get this basic gesture of this foot, okay, and then we've got this angle, we've got this angle of the ankle bones through that right there. We then have another angle where this is a slight angle this way. And then we have, again, a slight angle, again, this way a little bit. So we're looking for these basic relationships with this thing. Okay. And again, we could take that this is really very rectangular down to the heel, and then with the heel we just, basically give me sort of a trapezoid sort of look. This is again very triangular through here. This has a very, we'll just go ahead and straighten this out as this comes back. This is also sort of triangular, but we'll go ahead and just break this. This comes in through here and in front of that bone. This is the attachment of some of the musculature. If we went ahead and bring a line up, we should be able to see that this doesn't line up with that. It's much further away than, say, the heel. So if the heel is almost in line with this, that's an alignment. That gives us a lot of information. That tells us, again, if we took this line from here down, we can use, again, just a basic alignment like this to check that things are, how they are aligned. We can do the same thing over here. If we took this alignment and come down, it hits a certain place of the foot, right? So and we want to be more aware of that. The more that we're aware of that, the better off it'll be. If we take the bottom of this ankle bone, and again, this is just part of learning to use your eyes better. The bottom of this ankle bone lines up with the back of, the back toes. And then we have that this breaks outside this line a little bit. Not by very much, but probably just a little bit more. So again, we can, of course, use alignments. We can use other things as we're drawing to help us draw better. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we want to? So again, this is basically this angle in here. This thing comes with this angle in here. We then have, if we took, there's like a rhythm from here, from the bottom here, and making like a little arc through there. So we can go ahead and try to establish that same sort of rhythm. There's then a rhythm of the heel as it comes around. Now, it actually comes, it's beyond this just a bit, so it actually, but it comes here, comes in, and then it comes around a little bit, and then up into, into the foot a little bit. So, again, we're going to look for some of that. We also have that this is coming down and around, and over, and then up, and then back up again. And then we'd come into this, into the Achilles heel, the tendon, the Achilles tendon, named after the great Achilles, who supposedly could not be hurt except for where his mother dipped him into the river. Was it the river Styx? I can't remember who she. Anyway, she dipped her son into the river, and she was promised he would be invulnerable. But where she held him by his ankle, that was his only vulnerability, and he was killed by being struck in the ankle with an arrow or something like that. Maybe it was either a poison arrow. I don't know, but it's been a long time since I've read the story. I'm sitting there worrying about all these little bits, but this is the strongest tendon in the entire body, is this Achilles tendon. Right through here. Again, this is about where this is. This tendon has two sides and it has a front. So there's, you know, this tendon has, again, it's if you can't see this probably because I've got too many lines here, but you can see both sides and the top of that tendon. And we'll go ahead and just, it's actually sort of more like this, but we're just going to go ahead and do this into that foot. Okay. Now, that's where that came from. So that comes down through here. Okay, so what we're going to look for now is, as we're dealing with this, is we're going to deal with, again, the arch. So if that's there, and this is the end of the toe, the arch is just a little bit down from there. And this is the wedge. Again, the wedge of this foot comes down. Okay, so that's the wedge of the foot, and then the toes poke a little bit beyond the wedge. So these would then be, we would then have the toes like so. You know, and again, this is on an arc, right? The foot is built on again on these arcs. This would be the toes coming up through here. This foot then comes down. This foot comes down here. Then we start to come in for the, you know, we really see where the foot comes here and into the ankle. Or the heel. I said ankle, pardon me. I meant to say the heel. Okay. So again, we've got this basic idea of this foot. Now, I need to correct a couple things on this foot that's a little much. This angle here being one of them. This is the arch of the foot. This is then the toe. Top of the toe. Toe comes in. Side of the toe. Okay. And then these are again the other toes. This thing comes up. Now where's the shin bone? The shin bone should be the shin bone. The outside tibia bone should be right here. Okay. So again, this comes up into here. Like so. All right. Now I need to back some of this off. So this was getting a little strong, some of these angles. And that's fine in the beginning. So better to be too harsh and come back and soften them than too soft and it starts to look like it doesn't have any form whatsoever. So about like that. And I'm just following through some of these rhythms. There's nothing more powerful than following rhythms, and the rhythms are following, they're not random rhythms, they're following bone, sinew, tendon, cartilage, and of course fat masses. I'm talking about the pads and stuff like we were the other foot. These are very important landmarks. And we want those landmarks. We want those landmarks to read, as people like to use the term, which just means so we can see them very clearly, that they make sense. That's just another way of saying, does it make sense? And if the answer is yes, then good. This again, we're going to be using some lost and found line to help me with some of these soft overlaps that start to happen in this foot. And again, these overlaps and other things are going to be very, very important. Sort of this finished line stuff can be very important on this drawing. Okay. This is probably a little bit too harsh that I did here. So we're going to flatten it out just a bit. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and again, this muscle that then comes down and becomes part of the tendon, this is in front of this. And so again, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have this line overlapping, and then as it overlaps, we're going to soften it, make it lighter, until it just kind of whispers what's happening there. All right, so apparently I'm just over here concentrating way too much. And I should be, because again, these forms are not easy. They are difficult. And whoever will tell you different is lying to you. But I know you guys can do it. It's just we just keep doing the construction. Again, we're still looking for what overlaps what, where it overlaps. One should be thicker coming in front, one should be a little thinner. Sometimes even a little bit lighter too. And we can certainly, but by varying our line quality, that's what's going to really help with making these, very interesting. Something about like that. And got a little bit of this coming in here. And there's an attachment onto this tendon and the muscle. And so we're just going to go ahead and very gently coax the idea on here that the muscle is coming down and through and attaching. Over onto here. There's a lot going on in the leg, and that's why this is a particularly difficult section of the foot, because there is so much going on here on this foot as it transitions down from the leg and becomes the foot. And we don't want to neglect to tell the story. We don't want to neglect to visually say, hey, yeah, this is an important piece. Are you guys watching? Are you watching this? Are you watching this? Because it really is important. That's what we're telling the viewer by putting this information in here, that it is important, that this is something that you want to watch. It's a story, if you will. So we're going to tell it, and hopefully we can tell it well. Again, feet, just amazing all the subtlety. And because of some of the subtlety, again, because we're like, oh, it's just this rounded, clunky, aren't they just, maybe pay attention to them when they're on some little infant, but after that, we're like, feet. Yeah, they're kind of down there, I guess. Except for people that, of course, like their pedicures or what have you. But there certainly are nothing wrong with that. For people that want to go and get their feet taken care of, that's great news. But I'm just saying it's one of the more neglected parts of the body. And it deserves, after you try to draw some feet, usually you're going to get some more respect because they deserve it. It's pretty incredible. And again, the mechanics of it, the engineering of it, is to hold all the weight of the body. And what an amazing thing to be able to do that. I mean, just because the body, it's got to take not just the weight, but jumping and running and all kinds of stress, and it all works because of the way that it was engineered. However people believe the engineering happened, that's up to them. But the fact that it is the more important conversation is, wow, isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that, extraordinary? And it really is. This is some of the stuff, I talk about. This is we talk about classical drawing and stuff. These are things that fascinated the Renaissance masters. They were just in awe of the engineering, and as they saw it, the intelligence behind that. That they created the engineering, but and that was really a big part of the fascination. That wow, this is an amazing feat. That man was the ultimate creation of a divine creator, and that was, a big part of the philosophy that drove, the art of the Italian Renaissance. And so they really, really studied it because they felt that in man there was a lot of the significant parts of creation were echoed because of what it took to create this amazing, this amazing, the body of man and all this good stuff, mankind and all that good stuff. So and go ahead and bring this down. As this then transitions into the foot. That's there's a part of which you have to go, which is more important, and there's a couple things like that right there I just got rid of because I didn't think it was as important as what else is around it. So all right, so now again we've got this foot going on. I've got to get the overlaps going on here, otherwise the overlaps won't make sense. And they are a very important part of this. All right. All right. So again, we've got some of this fun stuff happening on this foot. And I got to be a little careful of this one. If it's too far out, which I think this is. And the reason I just noticed this again, you got to be really careful, because if not, this will start to be if it comes too much this way, stress point breakage. It'll start to look like this foot is broken. And I think I'm getting some of that going on. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this back to here and then pull this out a little bit more to there, which should counterbalance that issue that was happening with the drawing. I'm going to go ahead and lighten this a little bit. That overlaps this. And again, I think this little bit will help just to again not look like it's quite so like this ankle is busted, because that would not be a good look. That would not, and that's why whenever you break the ankle, it's a pretty severe deal. You want that to heal really properly, because again, it affects how you walk, how you run, you know, your, you know, doing this a little darker than I normally would, but there's no getting rid of that line now. That's a part of the line, that's there. I mean, I could take out the electric eraser, see if I get rid of it, but I'll tell you, I've played with those enough, that ain't coming out. But again, I think that'll work. And again, you have to be careful. You know, this, you know, that we don't want to get this to feel like, again, that it's just too, that you're breaking, you're going to break the ankle. And if that juts out too far, it can start to give that look. But again, very, very cool. This, the way, again, the body works, very, very, very cool. I like it. It's amazing in so many different ways. I think we need to probably put a little bit more emphasis on the Achilles tendon as far as that goes. So we're going to go ahead and, you know, bring that tendon in here a little bit more. It transitions down onto transitions down and attaches to the ankle bone, which again is really quite important. This is where this, of course, comes over here, attaches onto the tendon and the muscle a little bit. Now there's one that, because of the light, it softens it a little bit. I'm going to bring it back in because this is I think going to be very important for telling the story of, you know, showing where the tendon basically comes up and attaches. It's not there. It's very light because of the lighting, but I think it just needs to tell its story. So we're bringing it back up here onto the onto the foot, as far as that goes. So this is again where it connects down onto the heel. And there's also this little bulge at the back of the heel, again, where the weight is distributing down and onto it. And we're going to use soft lines. We don't want it to be too strong, but we want some of that information. And then this up here is where, again, this the Achilles tendon attaches to the muscle, so we can see a little bit of that right up through there. And I think that's a little too strong, so we're going to go a little bit strong. So I'm going to go ahead and lighten this just a little bit, and we're just going to go ahead and try to. There's a little bit of, again, there's some structure here that's getting blown out a little bit because of the lighting. So when in doubt, if I can't tell the structure, if you're not doing it with shading, then you have to do it with line. So I'm going to include the bit of structure where this is coming down and then onto and around the heel. This is then coming up, and then this is coming out a little bit as the muscle comes over here, and there it begins. Wait, what do we miss here? Oh, I see what I did. Okay, so this is also coming here. There's the outside attachment here, and then there's the inside attachment. That thing comes over here and attaches, and this is again where this tendon is attaching to the muscle right through there. And again, there's a light thing that was causing this line, but that's not as important as the structure line. So we're gonna have some of this. And again, there's also this goes on into here. Again, this is a shadow thing. So that has to lighten because we're dealing with structure. So again, I'm gonna come in here one more time and look for, you know, again, what's the structure of this, and there's the structure of the heel coming around. And in fact, you'll get like if you actually, you know, the heel bone, calcaneus, I think is what it's called. It's been a while, but you can actually start to see, you know, in dissection, you can start to see a little bit of the tip of the bone back here that creates the heel. But I think that's getting too confusing, so we're going to clean some of this up, just soften it a bit, and keep the most important part of this drawing. Like so. So again, I was like, what? You know, I was doing all these little sort of things, again, these little details that had more to do with the lighting than the actual structure. So, not that they're not important, but just that the thing that's going to describe most is again the structure stuff. And these need to be lighter than the outside contours. So we're trying to deal with a hierarchy of line. There's the outside contour, which are the darkest because they are the biggest hierarchies. And then they're like, which structure is more important? This soft one over here, this over here. Well, of the two, they can't be the same. This one's actually a little softer, and this one's over here is a little more important. So again, as we're dealing with this, we're dealing with hierarchy of shape, hierarchy of line. And all right, so I think we've talked enough about the heel. Lots and lots of stuff about the heel. And now we want to finish off the foot. Now, we can't see much of the foot as far as that goes. We can see a little bit, you know, like there's a little bit of the toenail or something like this. It's over here. Again, the toenail is kind of, very much see the curvature of it. But we don't really see much of that back toe. In fact, I don't think we see that much of the nail. I think I got the toe out too far. I think that's more correct, so take that back off. That will then we have got the toenail, that so forth and so on. The toenail that then comes back a little bit into this foot, and we just see a little bit of the toe curving around. Just a scotch of that foot curving around over here. Right? Got the toenail, toe. This is the big part of the toe coming over here around and then onto the being overlapped by the arch of the foot. This then comes up over onto here. This again is this foot coming in front of the big toe as it goes down. I think the big toe is a little wider. I think the big toe comes over here. And then we hit it a little bit into the knuckle of the toe, I think. Something about like that. So we got the toe over there. And again, with this, we're going to bring this curve around, because again, this curve is, again, starts to show the, the rest of the little toes here. And, we're going to have, of course, there's a little pinky toe right here. And then between there, we're going to have 3 more toes, right? And we can't see much of them. They're actually quite, they're just diminishing because of perspective and all that good stuff. But like this toe is over here, and we see, kind of the knuckle rounding. And there's just a little bit of like the far little toe curling up, just a scotch that we can see of that little bit of the foot. And then there's this one that comes forward, and we don't even see that toe really. This is coming and then just sort of disappearing, like so. We then have this toe, which again is, you can't see very much of it, where we actually see again the knuckle, but then there's just a little bit of the toe beyond that curling up, because again the toes curl a little bit. Gotta make sure that we've got this. These go ahead and connect into a very specific sort of curve that I want to make sure is in there. All right. And then this one coming over from here. And this little toe looks much bigger here because of the way that it's overlapping all these other toes. Little toe right there. Got to be careful the little toe doesn't take up too, doesn't overextend outside of its depth. Don't make it bigger than what it's supposed to be. But it actually is kind of a little chubby toe, and it kind of overlaps like this is the knuckle, crease of the knuckle, and it like goes around it a little bit because of just how fat and stubby that little toe is, as far as that goes. And then we've got this through here. All right, so again, we've got another foot drawn. Now, I think this could probably lose. It's called lost and found line, and again, you can use it to emphasize lines in certain places and lose them in others. And that happens through the body, where you have the edges that you'll catch an edge, and the edge fades, and then you'll catch this transitions to that edge, that becomes a stronger edge, and then it begins to fade, and it's called lost and found edge, lost and found line. I'm working with line here, so I should say line. Edges would be if you're working in paint and you're doing some of the same things, where the edges get softer and a little lighter, and then they get darker, and they get, just depending on what's happening and what's twisting and what's turning and what's coming in front and what's going behind. So this is our foot. Let's clean this up a little bit. So I want you guys to go ahead and try to, with contour drawing, I'll let you choose 4 feet to draw. We want you to try to draw at least 4 of these. Again, if you're really serious about drawing people, hunker down and draw 20 or 30 feet over the next 6 months, or over the next year or something. Really don't neglect the feet. Too many artists do, and they can't draw them, and they start trying to hide the feet. But if you put in the time and learn how to draw the feet, no big deal. Then you're not worried about them. You're not scared of them, and they'll make your people be more impressed with your drawings, because you're not afraid of drawing feet, unlike some unnamed other person that doesn't want to draw the feet because they never learned, they never put the time in, they never made the sacrifice to actually learn how to draw feet. So you're going to want to do it. You're going to want to go ahead and make that sacrifice. So again, that your drawings will be better and all that good stuff. This I think is a little harsh through there, maybe a little harsh through there. There we go. That probably needs to be a little stronger. I just blew that out. Again, the Achilles tendon towards the back, down here, this is where you see it the most. And that's where we want to deal with the fact that there's an Achilles tendon to this person's heel. If they didn't, they wouldn't be able to stand. That's also a major thing. If you ever cut somebody's tendon, that's almost worse than breaking your ankle, because that tendons are harder to heal and stuff like that. That's a major injury. If that gets sliced or injured or snapped or something like that, or torn. Because again, that's what's taking all the weight. That's what's transitioning all the weight from your body, of all your, all the activity you're doing, and then transitioning it down through the body, and then onto the foot, so it can hold up. It can deal with all that stress. So, while I was sitting there, I just muddied the water on this thing. Hold on a second. Okay. There we go. A little bit of indication that turning back and on and attaching just a scotch onto the foot. And again, that's not the most important thing, of course, because that's not an outside contour. This is the outside contour, so we can go ahead and well, that was thicker than I wanted to go, but it's there now. It ain't going out. Again, if I was doing this with inking or something, I was doing like a comic book or something, I could use a really thick line like this. This just seems a little heavy for right here, but and again, where it's darker, where it's touching the ground, you can go thicker still. So again, this could be thicker through there and all that good stuff. Like so. And if I did this properly, this up here would be getting a little bit thinner because that's coming off the ground. And then this over here would be getting a little thinner because that's coming off the ground. And then where it's touching, you could make it thicker. But, anyways. So go ahead and try to draw some of these feet. Give it your best shot. Feet are just, again, I think they're some of the most fascinating things to draw. They got so much going on with the structure. And they're so important for the rest of the, for your running, jumping, walking, all that good stuff. It's all about the feet. So you guys take care, be more creative, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.